Well, hello, welcome everybody. My name is Brett Siders, and I'm an ELT education consultant. Welcome to this new form of learning and sharing that we're all kind of being shoved into in this new age. For the seminar today, we're going to be focusing on improving online instruction with the Superstar book. Now, again, if there's any technical difficulties, please let me know. That's one thing I'm sure many of us have realized with online learning is that there is always some sort of technical difficulty, video problem, audio problem, internet connection. So I'm actually expecting maybe something to go wrong with this because we are connecting with people all around the world today. All right. Well, just a little bit about me. I'm going to move this over here. Yes, that picture is a little bit old. I look nice and young there. I'm a little bit older now. But I've worked in children's education for 18 years, and I've been working on training teachers in ESL, English as a second language, and EFL, English as a foreign language, for over 8 years. My educational background is in educational psychology, so I come to learning by more of a psychological approach. Last thing about me is that I'm working on a learning sciences master's degree. And this is relevant because learning sciences is trying to update education. Many of our education theories that we use are over 100 years old. And I'm sure many of us have found them, some of the more traditional ones, to not be effective. So within the learning sciences, we're looking at how we can kind of learn in the 21st century, which is very relevant to what we are doing. For today, let me see, it is a little bit slow. For today, by the end of the seminar, what I hope you'll be able to do are kind of three core things. One, I hope we'll be better prepared to teach students online. Two, we're going to adapt classroom activities for online. Now, I know there's some activities that can only be done in the classroom. There's some activities that can only be done online. But what I hope to look for is activities that we can blend into the digital world. Lastly, we're going to use e-learning tools and look at those on how we can teach our class. I've always felt those e-learning tools are more extra or supplementary, not really the focus of the class. But in this ever-changing world that we live in nowadays, those e-learning tools are becoming the core of the class. I'm going to go back for a second, pardon me. I would like to say, I hope as we do this presentation, it will be about 45 to 50 minutes long. We're going to reserve the last 10 to 15 minutes for questions and answers. So what I would like to ask you is if you want to either write them down on a piece of paper if you have a question, or please feel free to put it in the chat. And then what I'll do is at the end of this, the seminar, I'll kind of go through those, look at them, and we can talk about them together. All right. One thing to keep in mind, I'm very big on experiential learning, which is the kind of the fancy academic term for learning by doing. So I do believe in learning by doing, and what I want to do is after I introduce and model each activity, we do need to practice them. That's how they kind of go into our brain and go into that long-term memory for us. But also, I am going to be focusing on online learning with younger learners. I find the younger learners can kind of be a bit harder to handle, especially if you have a small group or even a full classroom online. So we'll be looking at activities that help engage young learners and maybe classroom methods that will help you have behavior management through an online class. And yes, because they're young learners, many of the activities we do will be very easy for us, but I hope you do practice them so they kind of become automatic for you. Because there's muscle memory, right? In experiential learning, learning by doing, what we consistently do, we remember. So I hope it's not just about reading, it's not just about looking, it's about doing. Which kind of makes me want to bring up the old learning period. How many people have seen the learning period pyramid before? Anybody? Thumbs up if you know how to do thumbs up, or if I see you, do thumbs up. The learning period, it starts at the top with the least effective ways of learning. What do you think is at the top, the least effective way to learn? And you don't have to say it to me. You can type it in chat or just ask yourself. Oh, and you know what? Since we do have smaller group, I am going to actually click onto people here. I see Annette, Miss Annette Burke has raised her hand. Would you like to unmute? Let me see. Oh, go on, please.
Hello.
Hello. So what do you think is at the top, the most ineffective way to learn or remember material?
Well, actually, experience, I usually tell my students to focus in the picture. For an speaking about orange, just focus on the orange. Actually, if you are speaking about a medical situation, you focus on, and I think that's a really way to memorize and have a better memory.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Thank you very much, Annette, for sharing with us. What we found is one of the least effective ways, and it's going to make us all smile, is, probably need to click back onto it, actually by lecturing. Listening to lectures is one of the least effective ways to kind of learn and remember something. And we usually, on average, what research shows is we remember about only 5% of a lecture. It's kind of ironic since we're having a seminar here, but that's why I focus a lot on the experience by doing. Next is reading. Reading, we really remember about 10% of what we read, especially if it's just done one time. If we reread something, of course, the learning increases. Next is audio-visual. So what you see, what you hear, we often remember about 20% of that. Going on, demonstrations. So now it's actually being modeled for us. That's what I mean by demonstrations. When something's modeled for us and we see it and we can hear it, we end up remembering about 30%. After that, group discussions. So you've learned something and now you share it with somebody else. And that sharing helps it go into our long-term memory. Now the last two, the great ways of learning and remembering, as we'll probably repeat it many times, practice by doing. We often, once we've seen something, we've heard it, then when we do it, there's a 75% chance we'll remember the entire lesson. Last, what do you think is the best way to learn something? The best way to remember something? You don't need to raise your hand, just think about it to yourself, maybe from your own personal experiences. I see Claudia. Claudia and I are on the same page. Teaching others. By teaching others, we really remember that information. Now, I bring this up because I understand we can't always have our students teaching other students so they remember something. But I want to look at a big difference between these different forms of learning. And I've kind of sectioned them off there. I've divided them. Looking at the three at the bottom, group discussion, practice by doing, teaching others, what do those have in common? If you feel free to type something into the chat, that seems to be more effective at communicating. So again, my question is, what do the three ways of learning at the bottom, what's similar about those? Anybody? Now, usually when I do live presentations, I always bring tiny chocolates to hand out to people. Oh, good, they don't need a chocolate. Ooh, teaching interaction. I like that word, interaction. Another way I look at it is the ones at the top are passive. They're passive teaching methods. You kind of stand back, if you're the participant, you're just watching it. You're not involved in it. And that's what's different about what's at the bottom. Let me move these over. Group discussion, practice by doing, teaching others. These are active or participatory teaching methods. And when we create our activities, and some of the activities I'll present today in the seminar, I try to make them as active as possible, as engaging and interactive as possible, because that's kind of one of the biggest challenges we have now on online learning is staying engaged. Yes, I saw someone said it's related to a current teaching method, which is based on tasks, and that's exactly correct. It's a task-oriented learning. Sometimes we call them like either project-based learning or problem-based learning, similar to those. So now for the sake of our seminar and really in the digital world, learning online, we have a few of these that we can utilize. Of course, just like now, we're having a lecture. We're using audio visual. I have these PPTs, there's audio with it. Demonstrations, right? Even as a teacher online, you can still demonstrate or model a lesson, an activity, a vocab word, a target phrase, a target sentence. When it comes to the active ones, we really only have about practice by doing. We're kind of limited to practice by doing online with young learners. Now, if you have older learners and you have worked with them a long time, many digital platforms like Zoom, what we're using right now, have what they call breakout rooms, where you can create small groups for your students. I would not advise that with young learners. It would just get way out of control. All right, issues with online instruction. I know I have some. What are some issues that you've had with online instruction? Please just take about 30 seconds, put it into the chat. What are some issues that you've encountered with online learning? Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading the chats here. A lot of people have great things. I see internet connection. I've seen internet connection a few times, yes. Classroom management. Fostering interaction among students. That's a great one. Lack of attention. Oh, I see. You guys have you've encountered lots of problems with it, huh? I'm in the same boat. Just to be honest with you, I am not really an expert with online teaching. I am like you. I've been kind of thrust into this last semester, and I've been working with it. Some things I've come across with it, the students are just not as engaged, especially with young learners. I mean, you've taken them out of the classroom, out of their environment. They're now at home where they're used to maybe playing or being active. They have far more distractions. what I would like to focus on a lot with this is many of the activities or steps I have help with engagement. And when I think of student engagement, it also makes me think of behavior management. Because the majority of time there's behavior management issues, it's because the kids aren't focused. Maybe they don't understand, it's boring. So they start looking away, start acting up, and often get in trouble that way. So I think creating ways to get students engaged is vital. Yes, the lack of the control of the group. How do we get control with young learners if we have a small group or a large group online? We'll be looking at that later. I think this was the number 1 answer that I heard from people: technical difficulties, slow internet, maybe Wi-Fi issues. And you know, although we've encountered this, actually just yesterday when we were preparing for the seminar and testing it, we had internet issues too between here and South Korea. Pretty much the information that has been come to me is that this is just something that we're going to have to wait on. That because of this new world that we've been thrust into, the technology is a little lagging behind. And that's why I think that they're trying to improve Zoom. They're going to try, ClassIn is another digital platform. So there's very limited things we can do if we have internet issues or we just want students to work on something when we're not interacting with them online. Because what I found that happens, that if teachers are like, hey, you know, we need students to do more work, but we can't always be interacting online, the teaching just becomes giving handouts, packets, worksheets, with little to no direct instruction. So I think these are the 3 big issues that I've seen with teaching online, and you also have shared some great ones with me. I'm influenced by my graduate classes that I'm in, but I truly believe we're in a new age of learning. Again, at least in the United States, and around the world, many of the systems and teaching methods we use are from earlier last century. That's how outdated they are. But we just keep on doing it because it's what we're accustomed to, and there's many other issues. But one thing I want to get you accustomed to is that we're moving from traditional learning to non-traditional learning. Or another way to look at it is from formal learning to informal learning. Traditional learning, that's in the classroom, teacher at the front of the class, the bells ring, the students go to different classrooms, and that right now is being upended. Even before this kind of event happened around the world, teachers have been talking about how we are moving into a new age of learning and we need to find new ways of teaching. So that's what we're doing. We're actually in a new age of informal learning. I mean, look, here we are. I've invited you into my home with this teaching. You've invited me into your home. It's completely different than any of us grew up with. So it's something we have to adapt to. For today's agenda, and I'll move through it a little bit quickly. I wish we had more time, although too much time online can be quite boring. But for today, I want to focus on 3 things. One is the tips for online learning. I'm going to look at kind of educational tips and actually kind of more digital tips that we need to be aware of, kind of like classroom management. The second thing we'll look at is adapting activities for online. At least through my experience, there's been many activities that I've used in the classroom, especially with flashcards and other materials, that I have been able to adapt online, and I would like to share some of those with you. And the third thing is we'll be using e-learning materials and look at how we can use those online for direct instruction. So let's look at tips for online teaching. Now, the first one is not even academic. It's, I actually came across this when I was talking with people who were on YouTube a lot, and that, you know, that the content in YouTube, yes, it's important, but also how you show the content. Now, I'm sure in your classrooms, you've designed your classrooms different ways. Also, it kind of encourages learning. Now we kind of have to do that at home too. So I kind of think of it like we now, like it or not, kind of have to think like a movie or TV director. You know, the first thing, background. You know, you can take a look at my background here. Perhaps it's distracting, perhaps it's not. Having that kind of clear background is important. Same with lighting. Having the lighting, where the lighting is. If your room is too dark, if your room is too bright, like if you have bright lights behind you, you kind of look like an angel. If the light's in front of you, it's perfect. It lights up your face. The third one, camera angle. The angle of the camera, and I've seen most people have done it very nicely, almost should be level. I have seen some teachers, and I'll try to mimic it right here, kind of teach from above, and all their students get a great look up the teacher's nose. Now, the reason I bring these up is it's not just about you looking good on camera, but these are things that help students focus. I had a one-on-one tutoring with a student, and you know, we're going through the lesson, and then all of a sudden he asked me, Mr. Siders, what's that car behind you? I was like, what? And I looked, and I'm like, and I thought, oh my gosh, how long have they been focusing on that car and not the lesson? So a lot of these, the background, the lighting, the camera angle, we want to focus on them because it does help kids stay engaged. Adults too. So I do think we have to think like movie or TV directors in that sense. Anytime we're online, whether it's teaching or even if we're doing an interview for a teaching position. Second, since we are on camera, I consider it thinking like an actor. I've always said you have to smile a lot. Like I see very few videos, but the ones I do where you have a smile on your face, my attention is drawn to it. I look at you more when you have a smile. If you're just kind of sitting there going through typing, it's not very engaging. The smile helps engage students, especially the younger students. Number two, body language and gestures. You've probably seen it. I use my gestures a lot. It's great ways to engage students using okay, thumbs up. These are great ways to be active and to keep students' attentions. Number two, and I've not been doing it very well, is eye contact. Now, I know what many of us do is we kind of look at our screen at the students, like I'm looking at you, the teachers right now, but that's not very engaging, right? We don't feel connected. Now, it might feel odd for me to just stare into a little dot on my computer, but for you, it definitely feels like I'm looking at you. And this is another great way. We know in our classroom, the eye contact with students helps keep them engaged. So that's something else we can do online. Number three, using attention grabbers. Quick raise, how many people use attention grabbers in person in their classrooms? No, maybe yes, no. Sometimes I need to use them, sometimes I don't. Online, with a small group or a large group of young learners, I always have to use attention grabbers, pardon me. It's exactly the same way I do it in the classroom. I use visual cues in my attention grabber. Like my attention grabber means, let me explain what that is, of course. An attention grabber is when I give a cue, a verbal cue, and the students, once they hear it, know how to respond to me. Like the one I always use is 1, 2, and the students respond with eyes on you. Now, when I do it online, when I do it in the classroom, the students just have to say it. But online, I give them the visual cue. They have to do this with their fingers. That way I can see all the students in my class who are paying attention by using those attention grabbers. And you can use anything. I mean, I know some teachers who liked when Harry Potter was very big, they would say, hocus pocus, and students would say, everybody focus. I recommend go online, just Google or search for attention grabbers, and you'll see plenty. Just choose whatever you like and make sure there's a visual cue, something the students have to do with either their body, their hands, something. So you know that they're responding to it. 4, use visual materials in your class, in your online classroom. I use flashcards. I actually prefer flashcards in my hand. You can also, of course, if you're very technically savvy, you can put the flashcards on the screen for the students to see. I just really find this easier in my preparation. Also, while these are a lot of in the classroom, I've always used these in the classroom, I think they're so important in online classrooms, are props or realia. Realia kind of comes from the word, like, it's kind of realistic. Like, I think if it's fork, right? This would kind of be considered a realia. It's like a fork, but it's a toy fork, so it's not a real one. That's fine. If you're teaching the vocab of fork, you could use this to show them. But we're also at home, so feel free to go through, use real household items and get a real fork and whatever's in your household that you can use. But the key is you gotta have visual things for them to see, visual things that you can hold, and if you even want, that they can go in their home and get to show you too. Really helps with learning. So I kind of like, when I teach, I will almost combine all 3. Like if I'm teaching fork, for instance, if we're doing utensils, I like using flashcards, I like using realia, I like using a fork, a real household item, because I just want it to be multi-medium. I want them to see it and experience it in as many ways as possible. So again, I recommend using visual materials online. 5, very important, I would consider visual cues. Visual cue is something physically you do when you want the students to perform in a certain thing. Now, maybe we use these in our classrooms. I know because I would teach in classrooms where it was English only, so there'd be no translation. I had to use visual cues. Because otherwise, to explain something, I just started using lots of unnecessary teacher talk, which just the students stared at me and had no idea. So some simple examples for using visual cues. Like if I was gonna tell a student, like let's say I reviewed fork, and I wanted the student to now say it. Like I'm saying, oh, it's your turn. What might you do? What's a visual cue you'd give to the student to tell them that it's your turn? Can you show me? I see, ooh. What do you think? One that I always use, because I work with young learners and say, hey, your turn, or please tell me it's your turn. They would never understand. I would always just do this. Fingers on my ear, and the students knew exactly what I meant. I mean, this is pretty much universal. It's your turn to talk. Let me hear you now. Try again. You know, if the student makes a mistake and they need to try again, try again. There's lots of visual cues. Now, I always had to use these in my classroom because I could never use the native language in the class. I always had to speak English. So the visual cues became very important for me. Now that we're online, we can't have all the students speaking at once, or it might be hard to select a student one at a time. So many times the visual cues are great ways to get them to elicit or give answers, especially for the younger learners. Number 6, I'm sure more seasoned teachers have seen this a lot. TPR, known as total physical response. Who has heard of TPR? Anybody? TPR? Total physical response, it's kind of too scientific of a term for me, but total physical response means you're connecting visual actions with your target vocabulary, target vocab phrase, or target sentence. This is always encouraged to use in your classroom. A great thing, especially if you're not using translation in your classroom, if you're using English only in the classroom. But there's no one right way to do TPR. All you need to do is connect an action to the word. This helps with comprehension. So for instance, if I just said to you, eat, 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 and I just repeated the word over and over, a new learner would have no idea what that means. But if I go, eat, eat, they start to learn it. Many times what you'll see is students can't produce the language immediately, but they will be able to produce the TPR. They'll be able to follow that, and with a little bit more practice, then they're going to connect that with the English vocab word. Now, it doesn't need to be just for vocab words. You can also do sentences. You know, I've always used this for want, I want to eat, to eat. And again, the point of the TPR is not just for the teacher to do it, but it's for the students to do it and follow along. Now, I'm going to be a little bit of a teacher here. I want to see if we can do this together. So for I want to eat, everyone, can you do I? I'm going to go over and make sure I see everybody doing it. I, good. Want. Want. To eat. To eat. And I've seen some others. Yeah, some people are doing this for to eat. That's fine. There's no one way to do it. I think it's very important for you to make it culturally significant. When I was, of course, I've taught in East Asia, and when they would do eat, they would do this, like it's chopsticks. So you know your culture the best, you know your students the best. Find TPR that will make the most sense to them. So let's try that whole sentence. I'm going to, again, I'll use the TPR that I came up with. So I want to eat. To eat. And again, as I'm doing this, it's not me. I'm not just being an actor up here doing it for you. The students should be doing it along with you after you've modeled it. TPR, great for the classroom. I believe it's essential for online learning. Because again, you can't always see the kids. The kids won't always be able to give their answers verbally. You know, right now, unfortunately, like you all have to be on mute so it's not crazy sound. So a great way to see if kids are understanding you is to see if they do the gestures. All right. If you have any questions on that, I would love to answer them at the end of our seminar. So I really think being online is, you have to be physically active. I know if you're usually kind of more calm or passive as a teacher, in order to keep your students engaged, in order to keep them focused on you, you have to be more physically active. You've probably all noticed, I've loved watching kids shows from around the world. I went to school in Mexico for a little bit. I watched kids shows there. I've been in China and Korea, and I watched kids shows there. And they all have two things very much in common. All kids shows. One, lots of smiling, like I talked about earlier. They're always smiling, but it helps keep the kids engaged. Two, have you ever noticed, and maybe it looks even silly to you, how active they are? Those kids shows, the performers are so active. Now, it may be uncomfortable for some of us to do that, but if we really want to keep our kids engaged, we need to be active for them. They need to, what should I say? We need to be more interesting than all the distractions around them, especially for those younger learners. So maybe before a lesson to practice how do you move, smiling a lot, making big gestures. Those are ways that, the kids shows around the world have learned to keep kids' attention. So be physically active. And if it's uncomfortable for you, it used to be uncomfortable for me, you practice it more and you'll be more comfortable with doing it. All right. So now we're going to look at adapting activities for online. Maybe some of these activities you've already done in your class. Hopefully you'll realize that actually they can be translated for online learning as well. A lot of them, I feel, a lot of the online activities that you can do that you also did in your classroom, use the flashcards. The flashcards are still an interactive form of learning that can be done online. For me, actually, it's one of the most interactive ways, either using flashcards, props, or Realia. So I'm going to just show like a couple of games. And again, maybe you've done these in your classrooms, maybe not. But I found these to be effective at holding the kids' attention in the class and also online. First one is called Odd Card Out. Kind of a silly game just to keep the kids engaged. So the goal is I introduce the target vocabulary using the flashcards. So it's a great time to use TPR. And since our time's going a little short, I'll just go through this a little bit quickly. We might not be able to practice it as I wanted, but I would go through and I would present the cards. So if I'm just introducing the cards, I would show, this is a cat. And my TPR, I always for cat, I go, cat. Cat, whiskers, cat. Now when I do TPR again, I first do it, and then I want to see the students produce it as well. So if you wonderful teachers could pretend to be students, let's practice it together. Everybody, cat. Cat, very good. And again, if you have a better TPR for cat, please feel free to use that in your classroom. The only thing is you want to make sure everybody's doing the same one together. Okay, next, key. Key. Oh, I'm sorry, let me see if I can make sure I see you. Key. Key, good. Next. Pan. Pan. So you have a little fry pan. Pan. Now, those were, let's say, our 3 main vocab terms. Those were our target terms for our unit. So again, I'll go through them again. Let me see your TPR, everyone. What is it? Cat. Cat. Very good, very good. And what's this? Key. Good. Key. Pan. Pan. Good. And now last, I throw in the odd card, one that's not part of our unit. And what I usually have kids do, and it's great for online, is show me that it's the odd one out by doing this. Finger on your nose. Ooh. Odd one out. Finger on the nose. This just helps them identify this is the odd card out. So for instance, if I'm going through my cards, I go, pan. Everyone, what is it? Pan. Good, good. And make sure you see the gestures. You see the gestures. Next. Key. Good.
Key. Key.
And I love people who are joining us. This is an issue though. You do want to keep your students on mute. Otherwise, it's going to be a cacophony. Just lots and lots of sound. So if we could all go on mute right now, thank you very much. Now that's why I feel the gestures are so important, that you can still be going through and looking at the students if they're doing the gestures, if they're doing the TPR. Now if I go, odd one out, odd one out. So again, silly little games, great for young learners to keep them engaged because, again, I know many of us don't like rote learning, but I think research shows to learn new terms, to learn new words, we have to practice it and hear it roughly, I think it's like 75 to 100 times. So when it comes to new vocab, we do need lots of opportunities to practice it. I love flashcards and trying to make some fun activities out of them. Oh, pardon me, I think, let me all mute real quick, 1 second. Okay. Great. Okay. Next activity, roll the dice. So again, like we did, you would introduce the target vocabulary using the flashcards, and you can use either a die at home or, you know, online, different online apps have fun little ones that you can click on, and you would be able to screen share that with your students. It's very simple. One thing you do is you just kind of roll the die. Let's say I rolled it to 4. And then whatever our key target word is, pan, we would practice saying it 4 times. This is more of a pronunciation practice and a repetition practice. Now, one thing I know, because it can get very boring for students, is I love to practice working on their voice powers, on their ability to enunciate and speak in emotional tones. So as you see in the bottom there, I said, make it more fun by encouraging students to use, I don't know, silly voices, or I even like, with my students, use emotional voices. Because I sometimes find with our second languages, we don't have as much emotion or inflection in it as we do with our native languages. So having the students practice the words with different emotions, like, I know it's gonna sound silly, but you know, pan, let's say it angry, pan, pan. Let's say it laughing, ha ha ha, pan, pan. It looks very silly, it's ridiculous, but the kids will enjoy it. It'll get them to practice it more often. And it's also practicing or helping them improve their inflection. So then their speaking English as a second language will sound more native-like. A third one, I'm amazed at how entertained kids are by this since it's so simple, but it's again using the flashcards in something I call fast reveal, slow reveal. So we introduce the target vocabulary using the flashcards like we did, and then all you have to do is you quickly show one of the flashcards. You flash the flashcard. So, you know, we went through our cards and I would go, make sure I can see myself here. I would flash it really quickly. Did anybody see that? Totally okay. And actually the first time I try to go too fast because then they just lean in closer and they want to watch more. And if I need to, I go slower. Pardon me, I just showed lion. Bad teacher, that was not one of our vocab words. I would have confused the students. So I would have done this. I would have gone quickly once. Very good, and I see Rosa, not just saying the words, but showing me she remembers the TPR, key. That, I can't stress this enough, encourage your students. That way, they're always showing you comprehension. That's how you can see. If you see the students just sitting there, you don't know if they really know what it is or not. If you just see them mouthing the word, you have no idea. But when they use the TPR, you know, aha, they're connecting it. Also, another one you can do is called the slow reveal. If they start getting a little kind of bored with that, then the next one is to slowly, pardon me, get my flashcards ready, slowly reveal the card. So I do something like this. I have the card here, and I make it exciting. I want the kids to be engaged. Can everybody see? Ooh, good, good. I just little by little. And you know, always right here, some student's gonna raise their hand. I know, right? Yeah. And you just do it more and more and more, and then someone will say, cat. Great, great job. Again, why do I do these activities? 2 things. 1, great practice. You need practice with that vocab, speaking it and hearing it several times. And that's something that can get very boring for students. So we want to make it fun for them. Also, this keeps students engaged. They really enjoy doing this. I'm sorry, I'm running short on time. I do love to talk so much, so I'm going to move a little bit more quickly. The last one, activities, I won't do it, but drawing pictures, you know, for your vocab, or again, you can do phrases or sentences within a picture. You can, of course, model it for them as a teacher. You know, you have a piece of paper or a whiteboard at home. And the drawing the pictures, the most important thing is go slowly. It's not about writing it quickly and then showing it to them. It's about in the process. And you don't even have to be really good at drawing. So if I went, what is it? Oh, you think, sorry, that's very, what do you think? Yes, and as you can see, some kids will get it faster than other kids, but it's CAT. It's the slow process of drawing that keeps the students engaged when you're online. Now, depending on the age level of your students, you can then have them do that. Give them the role of teacher, where then they have to draw one of the vocab words and then show it and see if other kids in the class can guess what the students did. A great way to kind of get the students interacting together. Now with the using e-learning materials, I want to really just emphasize something that I'd already talked about. In my experience, many of the online resources, you know, every time I got a new book, they had great online resources. You know, with Superstar, it has the CD, the CD-ROM, online extra resources, printable resources, flashcards, all this stuff. I'm really embarrassed to say it, but when I was a classroom teacher, I maybe used 10% of those materials. I really didn't use a lot, but now online, it's completely changed. The online resources, which it used to be the physical book was the focus. And all those online resources were just extra or supplementary, as I said at the beginning of the seminar, but now they're a necessity. Now you have to have them, I feel. Some of the online resources we'll look at is a learning management system, LMS, the ebook. Again, I never use that in class. I hope I don't get in trouble for that. But now that online, like I have to do that. I don't want to hold up a physical book and try to push it into the camera so the students see it. That ebook is so good. You have it on your screen, you share, and anything you do, they see. We'll look at that just in a second. And additionally, with those online resources, there's online games, activities, and lessons that the students can do either with you in the classroom if you want to do the games together as a class, or they can do individually on their own. And what I'd like to do is I'm just going to stop sharing for a second here. And I want to move. Oh, it looks like we have so many more wonderful students joining us. Pardon me. One thing that's so hard for me with online teaching is the transitions. How do you go from, you know, going something into sharing another screen and keeping the kids engaged, smiling. And one thing I've done with kids, I say, let's practice our ABCs. Everyone, can we do ABCs? A, B, C, D. And they're just engaged saying something as I'm frantically trying to get my tech all ready. Have them count the 10, have them count back from 10. Something that requires them to do something as you're transitioning into your next activity. So what I'd like to take a few minutes now and show you is actually how you can teach online using the ebook. And let me see if I can move our little screen here. So what I love about the ebooks are it's exactly the regular textbook that you use in class, just on a digital platform. And it's even a little bit better because if you're someone who uses your CD-ROM for like the speaking practices or listening activities, all of those audio files are embedded in the ebook. So you can see here, wherever there's a little musical tone, I click it there, I play it. I don't have to get like a CD-ROM playing and go and click and do that, nothing. It just makes it so much easier when it's all in one place. Now, another thing to help students stay engaged is you have this toolbar at the bottom here, where then when you click on it, like right here, I click on writing tools. You can write, do whatever you want. I made scribbles, probably if you want students to focus, you could draw things. Always you can erase. But really, there's so many great materials on this, and because I feel they're a necessity, the only advice I can give you for this is to get on and play with it. It's just there's too much for us to be able to go through in a seminar to describe it. You got to play with it. I remember my friend in college was a computer science major, so good at computers, and I said, how can I become good at computers too? And his advice was, go play. Get on the computer and play with it. There's no instruction manual that you could go through that would teach you it. You know, now when we get our cell phones, right, they don't even come with instruction manuals anymore because there's just so much in it. You just have to play. So I really recommend using the ebook because it makes teaching online easier. Whatever I see, the student sees as well. Now, additionally, I said, if there's things you want the students to do by themselves, you can go to the Superstar website. Now, there's two different versions I want to show you. The student version is always more fun, but I'm going to quickly click on the teacher version. If you did use this, it's a learning management system. You can have class management, report cards, see how the students are doing. It's a much easier way to manage your class students. Again, when I was in the classroom, I never used one of these. But now that it's online, you're kind of required to. For the students, what the students will see is, you know, you can see here up at the top corner it says My Study Room. So in the, pardon me, my sign out expired. Pardon me for a second. Okay, so if the student clicks on it, this is what the student will see. Whatever their book is, whatever you have signed the student, the student will only be able to see what you have shown them. So if they're using, for instance, this is Superstar 3, the book right here. They have each unit broken down. Now, each of these activities, there's vocab, listening and speaking, writing, reading. They have a multitude of activities within them. Now, the great thing about these activities is it records all of the information and sends it to you. So you'll be able to see what all the students are doing. I think it's a great way now to do homework if you want to do homework in the classroom. Then as you can see, there's, if they've completed all 4 sections, the vocab, listening, speaking, writing, reading, then they have a test and report card. This is a great way in an age of social distancing that we can kind of track our students' progress. There is a tech, not problem, but in order to do some of these activities, there's, what am I trying to say here? One of the activities is a double-edged sword, if I could use that expression, that the listening and speaking and vocab actually have sections where the students need to record their own voice. And that recording will be sent to you, the teacher, so you can actually hear the students as they practice the terms. Great way to do it when you can't do it in your online class because there's just too many students. The one issue with that, though, is they do need a microphone. They need a microphone attachment. Maybe lots of the kids are gamers, so they have the headphones with the microphones, but they do need that piece of equipment. But this is a great way, again, for the students to continue working independently and for you to track their work and see how they're doing. And not just the written work, but also their speaking and listening practice as well. Yes, I got the question. The ebook contains all the units and lessons? Yes. But in addition, it has many games and activities that are not included in the physical book because they're kind of digital games. again, I've used some of those games in class. I use the game as an activity, or many times I can assign it as a homework because you can also see if they're playing the games. Okay, someone said they're talking about the book platform, and complete name of the platform. The book platform is, yes, it is the esuperstar.com. That is the where you will have a link to each of the books, and then you'll have the ebook website there. And I can just take you real quick. So someone had put it, as you see there, the esuperstar.com. This is what the website looks like when you go to esuperstar.com. And it has the books, and then it has the ebook. And that's literally when I clicked over here, that's all I did. Pardon me. I had clicked from one of those ebooks. So it's truly as simple as that. I'm not sure if it's something that you can download or it's just something that you use online. Okay, let me chats. And again, as you can see, I need to practice using Zoom more myself. It's just something that the more we practice, the more we use, the better we'll get at it. And I just want to say, whoever has the background of the space and starships, that looks so cool. All right. So again, the toolbar, someone had asked to just kind of walk through the toolbars that you have when using the online tools. Okay, there we go. And as you see, someone from Language World, if you go in the chat box here, they've also put the link up here for the Language World books where you can get all the information. And yeah, someone did remind it, you're not able to download it, so it would be something you need an internet connection for. Do they have CLIL? CLIL is content language integrated learning. It does apply some of the theories in it, but it's probably more focused just on target language. And I'm getting another note from Language World that says, currently at the moment, the ebooks are available for 4 units. So I guess they'll be expanding on that maybe in the future. Okay. I'm just sitting here waiting if there's going to be any more questions. Okay. Well, I'm going to come to a conclusion here. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking time out of your schedules to focus, to learn, to be able to try to improve yourselves as teachers. That's what our students really need. And the last thing I want to end with here is, please feel free to go on YouTube. I'm sure in any language, there's so much information to teach you how to teach online. But really, the big things I want to say is to leave you with are, not only are you a teacher online, but you're also kind of an actor and director. So you have to think about things in a different way to keep your students engaged. Well, thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions, I know the people from Language World will be able to help you out incredibly. Please feel free. Again, I'll probably stay on 5 minutes, just in case anybody has last-minute questions. But for the rest of you, thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.